Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki jai. Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shiva Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtutara Shata Shri Shrimad Abhay Charana Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtutara Shata Shri Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shiva Haridasa Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinatha Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavana Dham ki jai. Shri Maya Pura Navadvipa Dham ki jai. New Jagannatha Puri Purushottama Kshetra ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai, Yamuna Maya ki jai, Tulasi Dev ki jai, Bhakti Dev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtana Yadi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Shri Guru Vandana, the lotus feet of our spiritual master, are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace we can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic preeminence. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord, the master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame spread all of the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. Prabhupada ki jai.
No, it's not letting. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astottara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace Shila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, Text 33. Navidama vayang samyak Kartarang Purusharshabha Atmanascha parasyapi Gotram nama chayat kritam Navidama vayang samyak Kartarang Purusharshabha Atmanascha parasyapi Gotrang nama chayat kritam Navidama vayang sangyak Kartarang Purusharshabha Atmanascha parasyapi Gotrang nama chayat kritam. Please.
Navidama vayam samyak
Navidama vayam samyak
Kartarang Purusharshabha Atmanascha parasyapi Gotram nama chayat kritam
Navidama vayam samyak Kartaram Purusharshabha Atmanascha parasyapi Gotram nama chayat kritam Navidama vayam samyak Kartaram Purusharshabha
Atmanascha parasyati.
Atmanascha parasyati.
Gotram nama chayat kritam.
Gotram nama chayat kritam.
Matacis.
Navidamavayam samyak.
Navidamavayam samyak.
Kartaram purusharshakam.
Kartaram purusharshava.
Atmanascha parasyati.
Atmanascha parasyati.
Gotram nama chayat kritam.
Gotram nama chayat kritam.
Navidamavayam samyak.
Navidamavayam samyak.
Kartaram purusharshava.
Kartaram purusharshava.
Atmanascha parasyati.
Atmanascha parasyati.
Gotram chayat kritam.
Gotram nama chayat kritam.
Word for word translation. Na,
Na,
do not.
do not.
Vidama,
Vidama,
no.
no.
Vayam,
Vayam,
I.
I.
Samyak,
Samyak,
who knows that word? Complete. Here it means perfectly. Sankirtan means Samyak Kirtan, perfect and complete Kirtan. So that word, Samyak. Kartaram,
Kartaram,
maker.
maker.
Purusharishabha,
Purusharishaka,
O best of human beings.
O best of human beings.
Atmanaha, of myself.
Of myself.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and
Parasya,
Parasya,
of others.
of others.
Api,
Api,
also.
also.
Gotram,
Gotram,
family history.
family history.
Nama,
Nama,
name.
name.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and
Yatkritam,
Yakritam,
which has been made by whom?
which is made by whom?
Translation by, and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The girl said, so now for the first time the Puranjini is speaking to Puranjana. The girl said, O best of human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. Purport. The living entity is ignorant of his origin. He does not know why this material world was created, why others are working in this material world, and what the ultimate source of this manifestation is. No one knows the answers to these questions, and this is called ignorance. By researching into the origin of life, important scientists are finding some chemical composition or cellular combinations. But actually no one knows the original source of life within this material world. The phrase Brahma Jigyasa is used to indicate an inquisitiveness to know the original source of our existence in this material world. No philosopher, scientist, or politician actually knows where from we have come, why we are here, struggling so hard for existence, and where we will go. Generally, people are of the opinion that we are all here accidentally, and that as soon as these bodies are finished, all our dramatic activities will be finished and we will become zero. Such scientists and philosophers are impersonalists and voidists. In this verse, the girl is expressing the actual position of the living entity. She cannot tell Puranjana her father's name because she does not know from where she has come from. Nor does she know why she is present in that place. She frankly says that she does not know anything about all this. This is the position of the living entity in the material world. There are so many scientists, philosophers, and big leaders, but they do not know where from they have come, nor do they know why they are busy within this material world to obtain a position of so-called happiness. In this material world we have many nice facilities for living, But we are so foolish that we do not ask, who has made this world habitable for us and has arranged it so nicely? Everything is functioning in order, but people foolishly think that they are produced by chance in this material world, and that after death they will become zero. They think that this beautiful place of habitation will automatically remain. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The girl said, O best of human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. So here in this verse, the Prabhupada also explains in the purport that we can see the position of a living entity which is in ignorance. And she doesn't even know where she has come from and how she came there and who is the origin of her. And Prabhupada explains that this is the position of the living entity in the material world. That's the position of us. When I read this verse a few days ago, I was remembering in my childhood, when I was quite small, somehow or other I used to sleepwalk. You know what sleepwalking is? Mm-hmm. And it really kind of reminded me of our position. When, like, I remember a few times, once, I think that was the most dramatic one, when we went with the family to Tunisia for a family vacation, and we were staying in a hotel, and all of a sudden we went to bed, and then all of a sudden I woke up at the beach. That was a little later, maybe 10, 11 years. And so I woke up, I didn't know how I got here, didn't know what I'm doing, and so I tried to go back. And in the hotels you have these rooms where you can only enter with a card or a key, and my father was sleeping sound he didn't hear me, so I couldn't go inside. I had to really knock loudly. And another time I remember, I grew up on a farm. I just woke up next to the cows and the horses in the stable. And that was always a very shocking thing. No, whoa, how did I come here? What happened? And actually that is the same situation with us. For example, we can ask probably everyone in this room, do you remember the first 2 years, or let's say the first year of your life in this body? Probably not. We don't have experience of that. We forget. But still, of course we are here and we understand that we should understand who we are. But for many, they live a whole life and they never question that fact that how did I actually come here? What is the purpose? And all of that. So I thought we can speak a little bit about ignorance and also the process of how to get free of ignorance. And there is a famous verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which says that Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness, and so wherever there is Krishna there cannot be Maya or darkness or ignorance or forgetfulness. These are basically all a little bit the same things. And this verse gives a very nice picture, no? That there is basically only two things. There is Krishna and there is Maya. There is light and there is darkness. There is not something else than these two things. So either a living entity is Krishna conscious, or a living entity is in Maya, forgetful of Krishna. Interestingly though, when we read the scriptures, we actually understand that the living entity, even though in ignorance, cannot be affected by ignorance. The living entity is always Satchidananda Vigraha, full of knowledge. So ignorance is actually not able to touch the living entity. The living entity is always pure. But still, the conditioned living entity is in ignorance. And we know that has to do with the fact that the living entity is the Tatastha Shakti. It can decide whether it wants to be Krishna conscious or Maya conscious or in illusion. And all it is that the consciousness of the living entity gets projected either on Krishna, on what is real, or away from Krishna in darkness, and then is in ignorance. That is important understanding that the living entity is never in ignorance. So I just made a few notes because my mind today a little bit vata as usual, and so I just try to follow my train of thoughts. So yeah, I said that the consciousness is projected either on Krishna or on illusion. And why is it projected? Because the living entity is Satchidananda, means it is meant to feel pleasure. And in the original position, it will experience that pleasure in connection with Krishna, and when this living entity somehow or other turns away, then it will look for pleasure somewhere else. It cannot be inactive. It has to find pleasure, or in other words, consciousness, the living entity, wants to serve. And we know in the original sense we serve Krishna, or the senses of Krishna, and when we are in ignorance we identify with the body and we serve the body, and we try to connect the body with the sense objects. And this is called ignorance, because that the origin of ignorance, that I can be independent of Krishna, and then I am the enjoyer. So then I get a body and I identify with the body, and then that is the basis of the whole existence in darkness. And so that is the position of the living entity in this material world. It's in ignorance, it's suffering, it's not at all enjoying, it's separated from Krishna, and therefore it is suffering. It is going through birth and death continually and experiencing all kinds of unpleasant situations, taking birth, becoming old and sick, and then dying. And then the Vedas, they say, so the goal of life is to, and Prabhupada also mentions here, brahmajigyasa, to inquire, why am I here? Why am I suffering? Who am I? What is the origin? And then when understanding that I am a living entity and a part of Krishna, then the Vedas describe the path how to do that. And that is yoga. There is different kinds of yogas, and actually there is only one yoga, there is only one ladder, but depending on where the living entity stands, it is a different name of this yoga. So ultimately it is Bhakti Yoga. And yoga is a process, and the process has basically two purposes. One is to disconnect from the material world, and the other is to connect to Krishna. So both are there. Or in other words, to redirect consciousness to Krishna. And for this both is needed. One has to withdraw the consciousness from material nature and then focus it on Krishna. We could say the goal is to just focus on Krishna. No? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva kat. Just chant the holy name. But it doesn't need much intelligence to understand that that's only one part of the business. Prabhupada gave so many books, and the Vedas are so vast. Our Goswamis gave so many, simply for the purpose of coming to this point, meaning we also have to understand how to bring back the consciousness to Krishna. And this is an interesting point. I find that even though there is only darkness, and Krishna, and our goal is very simple, we have to just focus on Krishna, and Krishna is present in his deity form, in the holy name, and in scripture. So it's so simple, and the instruction could be so simple, and actually is so simple. We know that the essence of all the injunctions is to never forget and always remember Krishna. But then there is so many rules, because it is a yoga process. It takes time to redirect. And in this verse, to never forget Krishna, to always remember, there we also have these two aspects inside. It could be the injunctions of all the scriptures to always remember Krishna, but it is to always remember and never forget. So there is a slight difference between the two. One is positive, the other is negative, that I don't forget. And we understand that one, if I remember Krishna, it's naturally clear that I don't forget. And if I don't forget, it's naturally clear that I remember, but still both are there. And we understand that Krishna is a person and we are a servant of Krishna, and it is a personal relationship. It's nothing mechanical. So basically it's enough to, if I say Krishna, if I remember Krishna, it's enough. No, if I say Krishna, I will always remember you. That is the essence, to remember. It'd probably be less heart-touching if I say, yeah, I will make sure I don't forget you. You know, I will make sure somehow or other I will not forget you. It's much nicer if I can say, Krishna, I always remember you, because it's the positive aspect. It feels nicer for the person that, oh, that person actually has a reason to remember me. And is not afraid to, oh, I don't want to forget you. That is more kind of the negative. So these are the two main injunctions, and from these two the whole Vedic knowledge basically comes, how to remember Krishna and how not to forget. And if we look at the Prabhupada, what he gave, the process he gave, we can see when he initiated devotees, then he gave basically two things, or five things. One is that you have to chant, and one is that this you should not do. And the four regulative principles, naturally they are here. Don't take intoxication, because if you take intoxication you will forget Krishna. Don't take meat and fish, because if you do that you will forget Krishna. Don't gamble. Don't have illicit sex. So that's just not to forget. That's that aspect. But then chant 16 rounds, remember Krishna. That's if somebody would say that is the main part. Like the other day we had Radha Kripa. She asked in the lecture, so what's the main principles? And I said the four regulative principles. But when I said, I immediately realized, no, that's actually not the main thing. And of course I tried to protect my ego, and I rectified I added. So actually chanting is the main thing, the remembrance. And yeah, so I think that's this very general understanding how yoga works. And in every kind of yoga you have this. In Hatha yoga, Dhyana yoga, you will also have things you should do and things you should not do. It's described by Patanjali. And Karma yoga the same. Now, somehow this came up, and I thought it would be nice to talk about it, is the essence, as we just said, is remembering Krishna. Man mana bhava mat bhakto. That Krishna says twice in Bhagavad Gita, just always think of me. And so that is the essence. And Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Shishi Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. And from this we can understand that bhakti, the essence of bhakti, to remember Krishna, to be Krishna conscious, is not mechanical. It is natural. Like, you cannot remember something which is not attractive to you. the example is given now by Rupa Goswami, I think, how a young girl or a young boy will always think of the opposite sex because it's just a natural attraction. So that's bhakti is not mechanical, it is natural. But then we do so many things which are mechanical. We practice sadhana bhakti. Now we sit here, we listen to Bhagavatam, not because this morning we came together and said, hey, wouldn't it be nice to just read a little bit Bhagavatam together? And then everybody said, yeah, well, it's not a bad idea actually, let's do it. No, it's because Prabhupada said every morning you just sit down and listen to Bhagavatam. It's mechanical in one way. Or we get up in the morning, or we chant 16 rounds. This is all a mechanical thing. And we know that if Krishna is attracted by bhakti, the mechanical thing will not work. And there one very important point comes in, that the conditioned living entity is separated from Krishna, so it doesn't have this, the devotion is in the heart, but it's covered by ignorance. And it cannot possibly develop that bhakti or free oneself from ignorance himself, herself. It is only possible by someone who has that bhakti. By a guru, by a pure devotee who gives the instructions how to go to Krishna. Because the conditioned living entity cannot just from zero to having no bhakti come to the point of having bhakti to Krishna. It's not possible. And therefore it's said the devotee is actually the cause of bhakti. It's not Krishna, it's the devotee. It's the devotee's mercy. And that is also a very interesting and important point to again and again remember, how for the sadhaka, the guru is the connection. And the guru gives the sadhana. It's not that I concoct my own sadhana, because if I concoct my own sadhana, what does it mean? I do what I like, and there is no, it's based on me. And who am I? I'm a conditioned living entity. I don't have bhakti. But if the guru, who has bhakti, he gives the sadhana, and I do it somehow or other to please him, then that's the connection. And Krishna accepts. Even though it might initially not be even, I'm not thinking of Krishna, I'm not feeling so much, but because I know Guru, I met Guru and I've received his mercy, I somehow or other have developed some feeling for him. And that's when the sadhana becomes powerful. That's when the sadhana becomes efficient. And that's, for the ISKCON devotees, again and again to remember how Prabhupada, he gave such a clear sadhana, and there is no need to reinvent something. Often it is seen that it is most difficult to follow. Even though it's a very simple instruction, it is very difficult to follow. So therefore we can conclude the best way for a sadhaka is to faithfully take the instructions of the spiritual master and follow them to the best of his ability. Vyavasayatmika buddhire kya kurunandana. Prabhupada quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti that that's actually the true intelligence. And So we spoke about no Krishna, ignorance, remembering, not forgetting. You could also say then to always remember Krishna is the bhava bhakti, that by having the bhav, then I will naturally remember. And on the other hand, not to forget means sadhana bhakti. To not let my consciousness drift away, but to bring it back. And maybe one more point which came to my mind is that it is therefore based on these two things. One is the bhav, the feeling, and the other is the intelligence, the buddhi. And it is also mentioned in some point that for the sadhaka, the buddhi is more important. The intelligence is, that's how he connects to Krishna primarily. And then later on, in the higher stages, the bhava is more important. The bhava is what will connect. And there's one very interesting verse in Bhagavad Gita we all know, which uses these two words. Who remembers that verse? Buddha bhava samanvittaha. You remember that verse? Buddha bhava samanvittaha. It's one of the most important verses. Aham sarvasya prabho mata sarvam pravartate iti mata vajanta. Buddha bhava samanvittaha. That one who knows that Krishna is the source of everything, and everything emanated from him, he will worship him with Buddha bhava, intelligence and feeling both. And so it's a process, and it's usually started with sadhana bhakti, and we know that on the stage of sadhana bhakti, the buddhi is very important to attentively receive the instructions of the guru and to sharpen the intelligence and follow properly, and then what will happen? The bhav will increase. The bhav will increase. And Krishna, in the first few chapters of Bhagavad Gita, he speaks so much about buddhi. He uses that word a lot. I have some, maybe you've seen it in the Ding Dong, I have some board in my room, and it's very nice if I study, I can, write things down. And I was interested, I made some research, the first 6 chapters, which words are used the most. No, it's nice to see Krishna speaking, what kind of words he's using. And I think, I'm not even sure anymore, but I think buddhi was so far, the word he used the most. And he spoke no buddhi yoga. You have to buddhi. You have to use your intelligence. You have to control. You have to focus. You have to bring back. You have to not forget. It's a more mechanical thing in the beginning. So we heard today about this ignorance, which is covering the knowledge of the living entity. And the way, there's only 2 things, ignorance and Krishna. And the way to get free, of course, and then in between there is different grades. But that's basically what you have, according to the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so yoga, Krishna consciousness, is the way to get free from ignorance and to again be connected to Krishna. And I also wanted to mention, I was inspired by Loka Pavani Mataji in the class. You spoke about the 4 kinds of dushkriti, the miscreants. And this Maya Paritagyana, it was a nice point, and I mean, it just struck me how, and I looked it up in the database. Prabhupada, he really describes it so nicely that yeah, you know, these are people, they have a lot of knowledge, but Prabhupada says they are more fallen and conditioned than animals, often. Many of them. Because they behave even more adharmically than animals. Means they are deeper in ignorance than animals in some sense. And that's really that word, Maya Paritagyana, that they have the knowledge, Gyan, but Maya steals the essence. And Prabhupada gives a nice example, I want to share that with you. Prabhupada says, like if you have milk, and if you churn the milk and take out the butter, and then you give the milk, that's what's happening. They have so much knowledge, but the essence is not there. Krishna is not there. So that's the thing. To get free from ignorance is not done by mental speculation, by knowledge acquiring. It's done by bhakti, by Krishna consciousness. And yeah, we spoke about how there is a process of bhakti yoga, and it has two main aspects: to not forget and to remember Krishna. And depending on what level a devotee is, one of the other is more prominent and more important. And it has to do with using the intelligence, and it has to then also to bhakti then also means to bhakti means to bhav, to remember Krishna because of being actually in love with God. Yes, that's what I thought of sharing. Hare Krishna. And if you have any comments, we have 2 minutes left. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. This is also what we have to do mechanically. I was thinking often after the class, say the speaker and ki jai. No, I'm just joking, because often I saw myself protesting internally against, because in ISKCON now many things get so, I'm not saying it was mechanical, but just wanted to make a small joke that there is many things we just do and they become automatic in a way. And
but it doesn't matter. You remember how this one devotee said to Prabhupada how when he bows down for basis, he doesn't feel anything. And then he said, well, you just bow down and eventually you'll feel. So that's how we do it.
That's true, yeah.
And also it's very individual. For some people it's mechanical, but for others maybe not. They have some power in the same sense.
Yes.
If you go to Ravish, they like to glorify. And if someone forgets, they're very upset.
How they glorify?
Always they say glorification to the speaker, and they always appreciate very much. They're actually very much, they talk with the speaker a lot. So that's also in a way appreciation. So, but it's always like the appreciation of the speaker. And even if the speaker, that's a little bit funny because that happened to me and I was thinking like, but I said something wrong in class, so you should have corrected me. But no, they wait until you finish the class and then they tell you, like on the side so no one hears. I mean, I was talking about Tulaside or something, and something practically I said wrong. But it was funny, and Nikunja Larson, she's proud of this. And she was like, no, I'm not going to correct you. I'm going to correct you when you finish the class. And then, yeah, so it's quite sweet. I mean, they have this love for religious, I guess. It's very nice. So it's a good example to follow.
thinking it's definitely good for the listeners, but sometimes I don't know about you, but the speaker is like, when is the joy coming? Because you know, it can build up a certain expectation also in devotees. But that's enough too.
Can I just say, because I also have these thoughts and everything, but this is also just ignorant and wrong. Right? Because you are afraid that you will be glorified, and if you are glorified, will you have a big ego, then your mind just starts thinking. You just accept, you know. That's like we accept whatever Krishna believes.
No, I meant that you kind of, if nobody says, then you become mental also. You know, not that you're expecting, that you don't want, but
And then an expectation. Yeah. But all that you're saying is just the mind.
it's just the mind. I think.
So the one who self-realizes, I guess, peaceful with everything, right? And he's chastised and praised, or ignored.
Yeah. You can see Krishna. No? Nobody says Jai. You can see Krishna is behind and people glorified, and it's also Krishna who's inspiring. No, there was a quote we had from Prabhupada where he said, Krishna is in everyone's heart, so if it was connected to collection of money or something, and he said if somebody doesn't give, there is no need to be disappointed because Krishna is in his heart. And, so there is no need to be disappointed at something.
But we must give full glorification to our spiritual master.
What does it mean?
It's the best way.
Yeah, she said she can praise the sun. And also like the Krishna consciousness makes no sense. If you can't do that, then feeling like such. Yeah. But you know, Haridash is a whole seminar. He has a whole seminar in how many to do this course. If you want to correct something, they have to do it. Jnana for Satvada and Bhava and Vivali. He is explaining this. And he said, one time, that if you ever want to correct something, never do it before. Because that one will be free.
So you want to do it before?
And also, tomorrow the verse is connected with today's verse, and I can follow to your action.
Okay.
The plan is already.
Okay, nice.
And on Friday, my Guru Maharaj starts a course for leaders, for leaders, overview of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I also tried to connect to this, because I don't know if I can or not, because I'm not the president and also I'm not the head of Jai. But nevertheless, I ask for your blessing because
Is it in Russian?
yeah, it's for Russian readers. It's 25 verses. They have in Bhaktivedanta Institute in Russia.
Okay.
So please give me
Yeah, sure.
blessings.
We can give you a position. That will be the main blessing. You can become some. No, then you are a leader. Officially, you are already a leader.
But I tried to connect.
So you will follow the life? You will follow life, his class.